I am calling to order this meeting of the Silver City Town Council on December the 11th, 2018. Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight. Especially like to welcome Lieutenant Wood from the Silver City Police Department. The next item on the agenda is changes to the agenda. Do any of the councils want to make changes? The next item is council comments. Council Amon Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have two brief comments. First is that I want to acknowledge how much information I gleaned and what a wonderful presentation was done at the Prospectors Legislative Forum. It was really a chock-full day, but really informative. And the second thing is that I've had a number of citizens come and thank the town and the Daily Press for running the series of articles that discuss aspects of town operations, like the water system, sanitation, and most recently, the firefighters. It's really making an impact in terms of knowledge and information in the public. And I just want to thank Mr. Brown for getting that, and Mr. Seiwell for publishing those. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Bedison.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to wish everyone a happy holidays, a happy New Year, and Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Connell.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank the town, I believe it's called the social committee, the staff social committee, who invited all of us to join them for their annual Christmas celebration last weekend. It was a real nice time. It always is. It was really good to hear about some of the staff members who have reached years of service designations, 20 years, 15 years, 10 years. We have a lot of staff who spend their whole career with us, and that's really something that I think is kind of special about Silver City. So congratulations to all of the employees who reached some of their milestones this year.
Thank you. Councilor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick one. Merry Christmas to all and a Happy New Year. And Mr. Seiwell, thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Any other council comments?
No, sir.
The signal light at the intersection of Pope and 12th Street was out for a while, and as I was going through that intersection and having to stop, I noticed that with everyone stopping, the traffic really seemed to move a little faster through that intersection. You know, and sometimes you have to wait pretty close to a minute, depending on what traffic from the other direction is doing. And Mr. Brown, I was wondering if you thought it might be worthwhile to look at the feasibility of converting that into a four-way stop. I don't know what the parameters are to determine that, but...
Well, it's of course, it's a city stoplight, so we can make a decision on it ourselves, because just like Bullard and Broadway. So we can look at that and move forward on looking at it like we did then with that light.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes of the November 27, 2018 regular meeting. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve the minutes of the regular council meeting of the town of Silver City of November 27th, 2018.
Thank you. I hear a second. Councilor Bedison?
Mr. Mayor, I second the motion stated.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is public input, and no one signed up for that, so we will move right along to reports. The first item under reports is A, report by the Rural Community Assistance Corporation regarding the financial impact of the regional water project in Grant County. And I believe Mr. Carl Pinnox will be giving that presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Carl Pennock. I'm with the Rural Community Assistance Corporation, and we're part of a national outfit helping rural communities. And we do really most of this work free of charge, and we've been involved with communities in New Mexico since the 1980s. So we've had an opportunity to work with a lot of communities, and my colleague Olga Morales and I work extensively in southern New Mexico. So back in May, we were invited to the Grant County Water Commission meeting to look at to prepare an analysis, a preliminary analysis of how the Grant County Regional Water Project might affect different communities in the mining corridor. And so this project has been in development for a number of years. It hasn't been actuated yet, but it's still in development. And in 2014, the Grant County Regional Water Commission commissioned a preliminary engineering report. And it's described the potential of building a water project that would serve not only the town of Hurley, but Santa Clara and Bayard and the Arenas Valley, as well as Silver City. It would provide a reliable, fresh source of water and improve the water security for towns along the corridor, as well as provide opportunities for economic growth. And so, as part of that project, we were asked to do a financial analysis, essentially, how each community might be affected by the project. And what we did is looked at a couple of scenarios and broke these scenarios into different grant components. A lot of these regional projects are looked at very favorably by funders. And so what we did was look at how this project might look under a 50% grant and even a 75% grant, which could be a very distinct possibility. So everyone should have handouts. I have a couple here, extra, if someone would like to look at them. That's about what I have. So apologize that the screen seems a little small here, but if we could look at our handouts. What we did basically is look at the project. The total amount of the project is about $18 million. And that was from 2014, and the PER was identified at that amount. Since it's 2018 now, we've added a 3% multiplier. So the current amount that we estimate is about $18.3 million. That includes the first phase, which has already been funded, essentially, for the town of Hurley. And so this amount might fluctuate a little bit, but at the current time, it's just over $18.3 million. That's the basis for the analysis. And so we looked at the different towns along the corridor. In Hurley's case, the first phase would be about $8 million, a little over $8 million. And then for Bayard and Hanover, the cost to extend it to there would be $3.5 million. $1.6 million to extend it to Santa Clara, and then $2.38 million to connect it to Racetrack Road, essentially, which would then connect it to the Silver City water system. And so by doing this, you would have basically a supply of water that could be used by every community along this path. And so what we looked at was the cost per entity, and then looked at two scenarios. The first scenario is what we call a postage stamp scenario. So it's based on the aggregate number of connections that the project would serve, which would be approximately 10,000 currently. So under the postage stamp, it's like mailing, if I wanted to mail a letter from Silver City to Las Cruces, what it would cost 37 cents. What's the price for first class? May have gone up. 50 cents? Okay. But I could mail that same letter to Chicago for the same price. So the idea or the principle behind this is that each community would pay the same rate to be part of this project, and it would be based on the aggregate number of connections. So if you can see under the 50% scenario, which is the first scenario on your page, on page 1, that cost for the whole project, including operations, loan payments, and offset charges, would be $4.92. That would be a base fee for each community in the project area. And then on top of that, there would be a 43-cent per 1,000 gallons of use for each connection in that in the project. So we aren't sure how much each connection is going to use. Might be 1,000, it might be 6,000. But this is to supplement water throughout the whole area, except to provide Hurley with its own source of water, which it badly needs and will get as a result of this project. So we see the total cost under the 50% scenario would be $7.41 additional cost for 6,000 gallons, which is about the average water consumption in the state of New Mexico, and fairly close to the water that's consumed in this area on a monthly basis. So that is under the postage stamp. Everyone pays an equal amount of cost to share the burden based on the number of connections. If you look at the train ticket, we made some assumptions that people would be using certain quantities of water, but what it boils down to is that Silver City and some of the surrounding communities like Arenas Valley and Rosedale that this project would serve, they would be paying a unit cost which would be substantially lower. So they would be paying essentially $1.16 and then 10 cents per gallon. So that would be 61 cents for 6,000 gallons. So essentially, Silver City would not need vast amounts of water from this project, and it would just be paying what it would use for this project. And it would distribute that cost among its customer base, which is around 10,000 connections, along with the other smaller communities involved. So because of that economy of scale, the per unit cost would be relatively small. Looking at Bayard and some of the other communities, though, that cost goes up substantially. In the case of North Hurley, if it were to basically take water from this project as it was completely built out, you would see the monthly minimum cost rise to about $35, and then it would be $3.09 per 1,000 gallons. So Hurley and North Hurley have a relatively small number of connections versus Silver City, so their cost would be a lot higher. So these would be basically undistributed costs, but what this shows is that the project would be very expensive based just on usage. So one of the proposals would be to look at the project on a per-connection basis over the whole. Everyone would share the cost of the entire project. And it would make the prices affordable for the smaller communities, and it would probably be within reach of Silver City as well. So page 1 shows that 50% grant component with all communities participating. If you look at page 2, you'll see what happens if Silver City decides not to participate. So the project cost per unit under the postage stamp scenario would rise quite substantially. In each case, it would be about $29.50 additional cost for this project. And so to some communities, that cost might not be tenable, and it may not it may make the project much more difficult to finance and to pursue, given the effect that it would have on the different communities. That cost, if it were just based on use and not on the number of connections, you could see on page 2, it would go up even more. Based on what we have for the consumption of Santa Clara, that cost would go up at least $18. In the case of Hurley and North Hurley, because they would depend on this project so much, their costs would go up to $53. So to build out the whole project and not have the involvement of Silver City as part of this regional project would greatly increase the cost. On page 3, we have I think a rosier scenario, and one that possibly might be easier to realize. I mean, like I said earlier, communities, funders look kindly on regional projects because of the economies of scale. So there might be a very large grant component with this project, especially if you could have a smaller community with a lower income perhaps apply for the project. They could be assured a higher portion of grant. So that would be something that you might want to look under the construct of a joint powers agreement, or how you would look at the different communities involved. But a 75% grant might be quite reasonable for this project. So that's why we included it here. So if you were to look at that, again, with all the costs and loan payments and reserves included, Silver City, as well as the rest of the communities, would really be paying $4.18 for the base fee, and then $2.20 for the first 6,000 gallons. So this project would encourage, again, economic development, and it would provide basically additional revenue, I think, through GRT, as well as just opportunities for Silver City. It would enable them to utilize the recharge credits that 750 acre-feet per year that are currently at the airport. So there are benefits that would accrue to Silver City. And again, as part of the regional project, Silver City the cost would be distributed, rather, among the different communities. So if we decided to look at this with Silver City's involvement, it would be essentially a $6.40 distributed cost. Again, if you look at page 4, it just shows the scenario doesn't improve much if you don't have Silver City in the picture. The price of water would be very high for a number of for the communities in the corridor, and it would just decrease the likelihood that a project like this could go ahead. So this is the principal reason for presenting this analysis, was to show you the role that Silver City would have in this regional project, just based on the number of connections and the benefits that could accrue to the community. I am...
Mayor and Council, basically, we've been working on this project for many years. We've actually gotten to the point of construction for Phase 1A.
Exactly.
And that will be, it should be, is it awarded yet or not yet?
The letter of conditions are being finalized.
Yeah.
So it's there, essentially.
Yeah, the bid's closed, and they're finalizing the bid and everything to move forward for construction of that project. But ultimately, from the very beginning, when we worked on becoming part of this project, working with them regionally to identify ways of assisting everyone in the region as far as it comes to water, I looked at what we needed in the short term, where we were in the short term, what we needed to look at for where we're at right now, and for the long term. For the long term, what I identified early on was, as of when I started looking at Silver City very strongly back in 2011, and that's why I gave you this, because it shows really well what happened based on some of the things we did, was how were we going to look at our long-term prospects for water. We had a certain amount of water rights that the town owns at our well fields. We've got three well fields, actually 4, but one of them, the Anderson well field, well, it's only one well, but we don't use it because we have to re-drill that well before we can use it. But on top of that, the town, as of 2011, we were pumping approximately 64% of the water rights that we owned at that time, and we have an ordinance that when we reach 80%, we start looking at ways of scaling back consumption and all the water users. Of course, it starts with the water associations, because they are the first ones that would be hit by any cutback in the amount of water that we're allowing people to use. And then it comes to Silver City residents. So we were using 64%. The only place that we were able to get additional water would be from our well fields, because currently we only have the capacity to pump about 80% of what we own and have access to at the well fields. So to do that, we would have to pay substantial infrastructure costs to get that additional 20%. That doesn't mean additional water rights, just additional pumping capacity to pump what we currently own. So we started looking at numbers, and we were talking about $8, $10, $12 million to do that. That's when we started looking at the regional project. We identified that we owned 193 acre-feet out at the Hurley Airport. Through our water modeling that we are doing regionally, separate from this project, we identified that we had the possibility of applying for the recharge credits, which we did. We got an additional 748 acre-feet. So now we own 960-some acre-feet of water out at the Hurley Airport. It's very expensive to pump that water. It's way more expensive than getting it from our well fields that are out by Tyrone in that area. So we have 2 options, is pay, well, actually 3. But a couple of them have to be combined to make it work. One would be to pay the increased infrastructure costs just to get the current water rights that we own, which would be completely borne by, the town would have to pay for it completely on our own, just to get the water we own right now. But we started working on the regional project. And we looked at the needs of the region. And Silver City being the hub, the shopping hub of the region, we identified that it was very important that our partners, the mining district communities and water associations, had good quality infrastructure for future economic development, because there's not a whole lot of space to build in Silver City, in the Silver City area. So if businesses are going to start moving in, they're going to be looking out in the outskirts of Silver City or in the mining district communities. But unless you have good, solid infrastructure, that's not really realistic. So we kept moving forward on that. And so then we identified that, okay, what's our options? One option is to increase that capacity. Second, we identified in 2011 by adopting the water conservation plan that we started hitting consumption, wasteful consumption, by making people pay more for the more water that they use, bringing in the radio water meter project, doing the large meter maintenance program, because that's where you lose a lot of water. So we started looking at conservation first. And as you can see in the report that you have in front of us, in 2011, when we adopted the rates, we started seeing an immediate decrease in the amount of water that we were pumping. And so we went down to, from 64%, it started going down, was 64%, 58%, 55%, 52%, 47%. So we've sort of leveled out around 47%, 49% right now. But once we start seeing growth, if we ever start seeing growth, we do want to plan for growth, or whatever the needs might be of our kids and the future of our community. So we want to provide the most options to our community. So one option is to increase the capacity. Second is to water conservation, which we've already implemented. Third is to take advantage of the Regional Water Project. Technically, from my perception right now, from my thought process, isn't that Silver City would ever actually use the water from the Regional Water Project. But what we would do was require some of the water associations to move to the Regional Water Project, therefore decreasing the demand on our infrastructure. So that will free up a lot of water, decrease our demand, and allow us to have other uses for our water that we're consuming. And so, but the issue here is none of this is a short-term fix. I think the water conservation plan was that immediate fix that helped right away. But what we're talking about here for Silver City isn't for me and maybe Councilor Cano, not the rest of us probably, but it's not for us, it's for our kids and the future of our community. I feel we need to look at making some decisions that aren't hugely expensive, but will impact this community immensely in the long term. And so I really feel that we need to continue listening and working with them to see what are our best options. Like I said, there's a possibility of getting a 50% grant, 75% grant. Who knows? We might get the thing funded outright. And I remember when we started on the project, every time we went to talk to funders, they laughed at us. They told us that this was nothing but a pipe dream. It would never be built. I got beat up in front of the ISC and others because it would never be built. But it's being built.
Yes, it is.
And so we're playing the long game here. And, we're not asking for any decisions now, but we're trying to educate. And with the new administration, there's new possibilities for us in the long term. So with that, do you have any questions or comments or anything?
Thank you.
I want to say thank you for that comprehensive history, Mr. Brown, very well done. Whenever we have talked about this in public, it has always seemed to me that this plan was a way to really make sure that our neighbors weren't thirsty. I mean, this is crazy. Hurley was not going to have any water at all. But for Silver Cityans, for those of us who live in Silver City, it is not just a long-term bet. It is the best example, I think, of risk management that we could really see, which is the idea of it's almost like insurance. It's almost like water insurance, because we might not be using this regional ring regularly, we in Silver City, but if there was some sort of catastrophic concern, then it would be available for us. So I just want to acknowledge that this has been, you did get beat up, I remember when that happened, and perhaps the sort of like last victory will be the better prediction about how to best use our resources here. So thank you.
Any other, Councilor Benson?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate what Councilor Amos Smith said, and I think one of the things that I remember when I was first elected to the council was you discussing this, and then we discussed it, and the fact that when you showed it, it was to be a loop. So that, which is what Councilor Amos Smith said, but sometimes people, if we just put it in the terms of the loop, that if as we have had happen in the past, our major water line breaks, then there's another option, not only for us, but for all these municipalities to get water to deal with that catastrophe that she was talking about in the short term. And like you said, it also spreads the risk across, and it really makes us more of a community that is supporting the other communities in the area. You know, they're not just our neighbors, they're, in many cases, our cousins. So I think, you know, in doing that, sharing together like that is really important, so that we're all in Grant County and we're all working on this together. I think that plans like this are very rare, and I think even though you had no problems the first time you presented it, a lot of people said, wow, Silver City is really thinking about the long haul. You know, they're thinking about into the future, and that is what I appreciate. So thank you again, and thank you for your presentation.
Any other questions? Or Mr. Brown, I thank you for that. Mr. Pinnock, thank you. I just had a couple of comments or questions, I guess. You know, this plan is so wonderful for, say, Hill Hurley, because in the near future they would have been without water, and so this is life-saving for them, for their community. But looking at it from a simple standpoint, do you know what the water rates are currently in Hurley, approximately?
I did.
They're going up.
Yes. When they were on the mine water, it was basically $28.95 for 5,000 gallons. And of course, with the new project, that's going to go up because they have entirely new infrastructure now, whereas, you know, in the past, the mine supplied water. So the rate will go up to $41.41 by the...
I asked that question because I was talking to the mayor, and he said it would be like a $20 increase.
He's correct, essentially, yes.
Yeah.
For some people that live in Hurley, that could be a pretty substantial increase in water rates.
And that first phase is about $8 million, so right now they're covering that all by themselves. And so the idea is perhaps as part of the regional project, it would cost less to extend other parts of the project, but once everyone became involved with it, that cost would definitely go down, and I think it would promote economic opportunities.
Mr. Brown, you want to make a comment?
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
So basically, their rates are going to double almost immediately, right?
Somewhere around 80%, yes.
Yes, sir, and what happens is, by us sharing the system, is that as communities are added, we will be using Phase 1 and the well fields. Added users will be using that, so those users will need to share in the cost of that. This could have started 20 years ago and costed a heck of a lot less, but it didn't. And so it's either plan for the future or wait till it's $100 for 5,000 gallons in Hurley, or, if we have to build our own infrastructure, our water will go up substantially because we won't have anybody to share that cost with other than ourselves, because it won't be a regional project. It'll be solely for Silver City.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome, and I look forward to working with the town and with you, Alex, going forward.
Mr. Brown, any other reports?
And that's true.
I wanted to just make a few announcements about the upcoming election. The election will be on March 5th, 2019, for elective offices of counselor in District 1 and counselor in District 3 for 2-year terms. The candidate packets are ready. You can get them either on the town website or in my office. And the date to file the declaration of candidacy is Tuesday, January 8th, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at City Hall. And if that date is missed, a person can file as a write-in on Tuesday, January 15th, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And anyone interested in being a precinct worker can give me a call at City Hall. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thanks. Any questions or comments?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I've had a request to go into executive session pertaining to threatened or pending litigation. Do I hear a motion? Councilor Bedison?
Thank you, Mayor. I move for the council to go into executive session pursuant to NMSA 1978, Section 10-15-1H7 of the state's Open Meetings Act, to be subject to the attorney-client privilege pertaining to threatened or pending litigation in which the public body is or may become a participant.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Smith?
Mr. Mayor, I second the motion as stated.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
No.
Roll call, please, Ann.
Councilor Bedison?
Aye.
Councilor Amos Smith? Aye. Councilor Ray?
Aye.
Councilor Connor? Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. The council will convene in the conference room after, if you wish, a 5-minute break. Anyone? Okay, after a 5-minute break, we'll meet in the conference room. The council is back in session. No matters other than those matters included in the motion to go into executive session were discussed. At this time, I will ask the council members for their affirmation of that statement. Roll call, please, Ann.
Councilor Bedison?
Aye.
Councilor Amos Smith? Aye. Councilor Ray?
Aye.
Councilor Connor? Aye.
Roll call is unanimous in the affirmative. Next item is unfinished business. Under unfinished business, item A is the approval/disapproval of ordinance number 1275, an ordinance amending the municipal code of the town of Silver City, Grant County, New Mexico, Chapter 50, NM Uniform Traffic Code Adoption, Sections 50-1, 50-2, and a new section, 50-3, superseding amendments. Mr. Scavron, are you going to make this presentation?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Our original legislation said that we adopt we can go back, I can discuss, the UTO is a compilation of state law regarding the regulation of traffic. The Municipal League has made it easy for municipalities that didn't want to go and create their own traffic code to adopt this compilation. Our original adoption had the language, "and as may further be amended." So every year, amendments come out, and by operation of law, that new code becomes our traffic code. But sometimes we find that there's things in that traffic code that we don't find applicable to the town. For instance, there was a provision that says you have to park within 18 inches of a curb, but that didn't take into account that we have curbs that are so high that if you parked 18 inches, you'd have to be very thin to get out of your car. So there's other points like that, including Councilor Ray's use of cell phones. That's not a state law, but that's ours. And when you adopt a new version of a code, it impliedly repeals everything that came before. So if we didn't do anything, the 18-inch requirement would be reimposed. Councilor Ray's amendments talking about cell phone usage, that would disappear, and we'd be only state law again on texting. And there's a few other examples of that. So from this point forward, we can adopt the and also, which is totally unexplainable, is that the state reduced fines across the board. A speeding ticket that was $60 is now $25. There's a whole bunch of examples where all the $60 fines have been dropped to like $15 or $25. I don't know what political pressure they used to make that determination, but it's not the staff that I've consulted with does not believe that reducing penalties is a positive thing. So we don't want to adopt the 2018 penalty code. So what was suggested is, okay, we'll take the basic UTO for 2018, but we'll keep the amendments that we've done in the past, and we'll preserve the amendments that we might do in the coming year, and we will leave the penalty assessment schedule from 2017 intact, rather than reducing all the penalty assessments. So that's what this ordinance is about. We'll probably have to do this again, depending on what other revisions they come up with in 2019. But for now, that's what we're doing, is preserving the UTO as it existed in 2017. We're preserving our amendments, and we're not going to have the language of that our traffic code is automatically updated by the state in the UTO.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Scavron. Any questions? Do I hear a motion? Councilor Kano?
Mayor, I move to approve of ordinance number 1275, an ordinance amending the municipal code of the town of Silver City, Grand County, New Mexico, Chapter 50, New Mexico Uniform Traffic Code adoption, sections 50-1, 50-2, and a new section 50-3, superseding amendments.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilor Ray?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll second that as read.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Makes sense.
Roll call, please, then.
Councilor Kano.
Aye.
Councilor Ray.
Aye.
Councilor Amon Smith. Aye. Councilor Madison.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next item is new business, item 11A, the approval/disapproval of resolution number 2018-29, supporting an application to the NM Finance Authority under the Colonias Infrastructure Fund for a street and drainage improvement project on Ridge Road. Mr. Brown?
This is authorization, this would be authorization to submit an application to the New Mexico Finance Authority, the Colonias Infrastructure Program. This is actually a duplicate of the application we submitted last year. We were not able to have it considered last year because we did not meet the threshold for construction of College Street. We are going to this year. And so this is a resubmittal of that application. It's curb, gutter, sidewalk, drainage improvements, paving, bike lanes for Ridge Road from Highway 90 to Chucker. That is phase one. We're looking at doing Ridge Road from 90 all the way to the city limits over three phases. This would be phase one. The total estimated application cost last year was $850,000. They're working on the adjusted estimate right now, so it's going to be closer to $900 this year. So that's what we're looking at, about $85,000 match in engineering and stuff we've been working on. Through the entire length of Ridge Road, we are going to have to acquire rights of way over 5 different properties throughout the road. We've already had the Community Development Department talking to the different property owners. We've already got approval from all the owners to turn it over to the town. I believe we're going to do a trade on one of them, but the rest of them, they're going to give us the property because it's going to increase the value of their property so much and be a really added increase in the value of their property out there. So with that, do you have any questions?
Councilor Ray?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Brown, can you tell us, if possible, a time frame on it?
This project could be awarded, should be awarded around March. They usually don't get the grant agreements out until, I believe, last year they got them around August, and they closed the grant agreements and everything by, I believe, October. So the earliest we could start construction would be October of next year. And we actually, not last year, but the year before, we received funding to do the complete design of the entire project. So we will have 100% construction documents by the end of this year. I mean, within the next couple months. They're very close to finishing them. So by October, if we are awarded this funding, we will be ready to go under construction right away.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Will there be sidewalks and streetlights and bike lanes?
There will be, we're not looking at street lighting right now, but there will be sidewalks on the east side, which is the side where all the homes are. On that side, there will be bike lanes, curb and gutter on both sides of the street. So we will be correcting drainage, bike lanes, regular lanes, and then sidewalk on the east side.
Thank you. Any other questions? Do I hear a motion? Councilor Ray?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve of resolution number 2018-29, supporting an application to the New Mexico Finance Authority under the Colonias Infrastructure Fund for a street and drainage improvement project on Ridge Road.
Thank you. Second, Councilor Cano?
I will second that motion, Steve.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please, Ann.
Councilor Kano?
Aye.
Councilor Ray?
Aye.
Councilor Amon Smith?
Aye.
Councilor Butler?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. The next agenda item is 11B, the approval/disapproval of resolution number 2018-30, supporting an application to the NM Finance Authority under the Colonias Infrastructure Fund for improvements to the town's wastewater treatment plant. Mr. Brown?
Again, this is a resubmittal of our application from last year for this project. It is to replace the headworks and digester improvements. I'm sorry, I had to read it because Robert sent me a description, because the wastewater treatment plant isn't something I really understand. But this project is approximately going to cost a little over $200,000. And again, the match will be around $20,000 for this project.
Any questions? Do I hear a motion? Councilor Ray?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve of resolution number 2018-30, supporting an application to the New Mexico Finance Authority under the Colonias Infrastructure Fund for improvements to the town wastewater treatment plant.
Thank you. Councilor Kano, second.
Mr. Mayor, I'll second that motion as stated.
Have a motion in a second. Any discussion? Roll call again, please, Ann.
Councilor Kano?
Aye.
Councilor Ray?
Aye.
Councilor Amy Smith? Aye. Councilor Day?
Motion carries unanimously. The next agenda item is 11C, the approval/disapproval of resolution number 2018-31, a resolution declaring the eligibility and intent of the town of Silver City in Grant County, New Mexico, to submit an application to the Federal Highway Administration, FHWA, for federal fiscal year 2020/2021 Federal Lands Access Program, FLAP funds. Alex?
Mayor and Council, this would give the staff authorization to submit a joint grant application with the county. We've been working with them for the last few weeks. The county actually is the one who taught us, introduced us into this program. We didn't even know that it existed, but they had been working on it, and we had a meeting with them and the Forest Service, who brought it up. It was one of those meetings with the Forest Service. It was that first one. And so since then, we've been working with them. The town has been working on Little Walnut since the late 90s. I believe that's when we did phase 1. We did phase 2 in the early 2000s, which brought curb, gutter, sidewalk, drainage improvements, bike lanes, everything to a little past Chavez Lane. This application would, if awarded, this project would, if awarded, would take that same sidewalk, curb, gutter, bike lanes, repavement of the entire street from where it's ended at a little past Chavez Lane, all the way to the city limits. We would be fixing a multitude of drainage problems that we have throughout the entire street within the city limits. So we would try to fix everything we can. Right now, we don't have lighting included, but that could be done with, at least with the regular light poles. Power poles, we could put lights on if necessary for right now. But the county we're looking to apply for about $8 million, because that was about what's going to cost to complete the construction. The county is applying for about $3 million, and they are going to do from the city limits to the Little Walnut picnic area. This program is a program to connect communities to federal lands, and so this is connecting Silver City to Little Walnut. We identified we have other streets that we can use this funding for in the future. For instance, Cottage Sand, and those streets like that, even North Swan. But continue to working on this, and the way this program works is, if you're approved, you have to ensure that you have all the right-of-way in place. Then they turn around and they do all the design and construction. So once we're approved and provide them with certificates of right-of-way, then they will take it from there, and they will complete we will be involved in ensuring that we're getting what we have applied for, but they will move on it from there on. And so, like I said, we are going to continue with sidewalks on both sides, ADA improvements, curb, gutter, drainage, bike paths, and the paving. The county is applying, I do not believe that they are applying for necessarily sidewalks, but they are doing the paving improvements, bike lanes, and walking paths along the street from the city limits to Little Walnut. So we have been working on this project jointly. We have to do a MOA, a memorandum of agreement, that we are going to work on this project together. Mr. Scavron's going to be working on that, and hopefully we should have that done within the next month. And I will not have to bring that with you, because that I can do that. But we've been working very closely with the Grant County administration, and we've been working with them very closely on other projects, very closely, have a very good relationship, and I'm looking very positively working with the executive department at the county moving forward.
Any questions? Councilor Smith?
Thank you. I was really very excited when I read up on this project, or potential project. Is this how competitive is this, do you know?
From what I understand, it's nationally, and like with all the federal programs, they have so much set aside for each district.
Right.
And districts aren't like a state or a county, it's multiple states. But the region that we're in, I believe the competition hasn't been huge.
Yeah.
And so the Forest Service really wanted us to, because the county was already doing it, and they had a $3 million project. And they really encouraged us to get on board and work and get this larger project because of the lack of competition in the region.
When I looked at the criteria that are applied for decision-making on the federal level, it looked like working with the county and having these multi-use opportunities and fulfilling this thing about watershed protection really made it a good potential project. So acknowledgement to the county and to you, Mr. Brown, for working together on this. I'm, as a person who's been a big proponent of the bicycle paths, I'm really hopeful. Let me ask, do we have the right-of-way?
No.
Yeah. Gotta have to work on that.
We're working on that. In fact, that's at the phase 2 up to Chavez Lane. The reason, we actually had the money to go probably another 400 feet, I believe, at that time.
Just a little
But
bit.
we had problems with the right-of-way acquisition at that point, so we had to stop there.
Have to, yeah.
We'll start again, and I believe the fact that we did phase 1 and phase 2 and how positive of an impact that had on the area will help us in the negotiations for the additional right-of-way that we'll be working on. We have submitted a request for legislative allocation to help us with that as well.
Yes, yeah. So thank you so much. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I agree with Councilor Amon Smith. This is really exciting. The group that Councilor Cano and Councilor Ray have been working with, the Outdoor Economic State Group, it's going to give us a great economic boost, I believe, to be able to not only say that we're the gateway to the Continental Divide and to the National Forest, but we can back it up with the infrastructure. So thank you for...
Yes, sir. In fact, just a little added note to keep this in the back of your mind. We're also, I'm looking at trying to find alternate uses for the rock house now that's been cleaned. And I think it would be a perfect trailhead for the Continental Divide trail system, especially if we're able to do this. So, I'm going to be working on that, just so you know. So hopefully I'll be able to find something that might work here in the future.
Thank you. As a reminder, the next regular meeting of the Silver City Town Council will be on January 8, 2018. Since the December 2019, since the December 25th, 2018 meeting was scheduled at our last regular meeting. This concludes...
Mr. Mayor, we need to make a motion on this resolution.
Oh, that's right. Do I hear a motion on that?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 2018-31, a resolution declaring the eligibility and intent of the Town of Silver City in Grant County, New Mexico, to submit an application to the Federal Highway Administration, parentheses FHWA, for federal fiscal year 2020/2021 Federal Lands Access Program, parentheses FLAP funds.
Thanks. Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Benson?
I second the motion stated.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please, Ann.
Councilor Benson?
Aye.
Councilor Amon-Smith?
Aye.
Councilor Ray?
Natural.
Yes.
Yes.
Councilor Con?
Motion carries unanimously. Now, this concludes the business of the town of Silver City. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor
I
Amon
move
Smith.
to adjourn.
Thank you. We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.